Zohran Mamdani. This is a young, bold socialist who promises sweeping change, a campaign that risks turning the city's budget, its public safety apparatus, its housing market, all upside down. This has implications not just for New York City. Stakes have never been higher for your family, for your home, your community, but also for the rest of the United States.
America's enemies will rejoice if Mamdani wins.
We've seen his pictures with his very good friend Hassan Piker, who is on the record saying, quote, America deserved 9/11.
And I want to answer this question that I get in the chat right now. This is great, but why wait until the week before the election to speak? I want to be very blunt with you. All right, this is going to be one of the most important broadcasts that I've done in quite a while. I want to ask that you help the algorithm by hitting the thumbs up. Share this with as many people as possible. And let me just say this. You might be asking yourself, why does New York City matter to me? I don't even live in the city. I've moved out of the city. Listen, for many, many years, it's been very apparent that whatever happens in New York City is sort of a portal or a gateway into the rest of the U.S. And, you know, in the city that never sleeps, the stakes have never been higher for your family, for your home, your community, but also for the rest of the United States. So I need you to stay for the entire duration of this broadcast. Let me know where you're watching in the comments right now, because New York City is at a crossroads. On one side, we've got the familiar paths of leadership, the incremental fixes, the steady hand at the wheel. But then on the other hand, we've got Zohran Mamdani. I mean, this is a young, bold socialist who promises sweeping change, radical housing and transit policies, and a level of disruption that this city, quite frankly, hasn't seen in decades. But this isn't a promise to embrace. It is a warning to heed. And if you've been following me for any duration of time, you know that there is a prophetic aspect to my channel. And so when I say things of this magnitude, take heed, listen, because when you peel back the headlines, you see a catalog of red flags, a platform that's been built on astronomical cost and broad social engineering. Okay, I need you to pay attention, because it's a candidacy that's drawn national alarm bells from conservatives and even centrists alike, a campaign that risks turning the city's budget, its public safety apparatus, its housing market, all upside down. And again, this has implications not just for New York City, but the United States as it continues to unfold. And guys, this broadcast is incredibly important. In this race, history isn't just knocking at the door, it's literally barging in. And later on in this broadcast, we're going to even expose the 9/11 aunt bombshell and what Zohran Mamdani said that's rocking New York City now. So I need you to stay with us throughout the entire duration. But I've got some friends who are going to help me out today in this broadcast. And what I'm going to do is bring them in here in a few moments. And they're going to help really shed some light on these issues. These are expert opinions. You guys know that I do not bring people on this channel unless I can say that they are going to speak with a level of integrity, but also an urgency that is needed in a time like this. So I want to thank you in advance for hitting the thumbs up, for texting and sharing this broadcast to as many people as possible. It is very, very important. So go ahead and welcome them now. My friend, Rabbi Haim, and then I've got my friend Ellie. Guys, thank you for joining me today. We're going to be getting into a lot, but let's just kind of jump in. Ellie, I know that something that's really important to you is like crime, the implications of violence. I want to kick to you in a few moments, but let's do some introductions.
So I'm Rabbi Feinstein. That's perhaps my biggest credentials. I'm a friend of Mike's, and it's wonderful. And we can talk about that, so about how it is that Jews and Christians are coming together. And that's something that's very, very powerful. And I'm the senior rabbi here at Congregation Jeffrey, which is here in Manhattan.
Yes, Rabbi, thank you so much for having me on. I'm Ellie Bikanim. I have the honor of serving under President Donald J. Trump in the first war. I was born in Iran, actually, and to a Jewish family. We escaped the 1979 revolution, landed in New York. We've been New Yorkers ever since.
Ellie, I'd love to talk, though, about the violence, the crime. You know, what are the implications for this?
Part of what we heard from Zohran Mamdani in a debate that we had with Andrew Cuomo was a question about the prison system at Rikers Island.
Yes, we have to close Rikers Island. Rikers Island is a stain on the history of this city.
Zohran has said he'd honor the law closing Rikers in 2027. You can't. You can't. Unless you intend to release all the people on Rikers Island, which is the Democratic Socialist policy.
Mamdani basically seemed to say that he was going to release these people onto the streets of New York. Anyone who lives there, who's spent any time here, knows that we are facing more crime and more daily violence as we go about trying to live our lives in New York. And the notion that Mamdani would release these hardened criminals on the streets, I think it's just so shocking. Even just as one fact should disqualify the man. But he also has talked about defunding the New York Police Department. He's talked about these crazy ideas about how he's going to have social workers do the jobs of police officers.
No, I want to amplify some of the points that Ellie was making, and I really want to start with one word, which is respect. Mamdani has accused the police of racism. He has been talking about defunding the police. Aside from opening up Rikers and telling police not to arrest for what he considers to be small crimes, the real issue starts with respect. Do you respect the thin blue line that protects every single New Yorker? And when you accuse the police of racism, when you turn around and say, oh, let's defund the police, let's get rid of them, you're not respecting them. Now, from my perspective, if anything, we should be saluting every single police officer we see. They are putting their lives on the line to protect ours. There is nothing more noble, nothing greater than having the willingness to make that sacrifice. And for him to come in and say, oh, the police are all racists, we should defund them. That is a profound lack of respect. Now, if we took the police away from New York City, we know what would happen. I still remember during the riots, during COVID, having that frightening feeling of having to bring my entire family indoors because I was afraid something would happen to them. And that's with the police. Imagine what would happen if they were taken away.
The implications are huge for this. I mean, the fact that we're even having this conversation, to be honest with you, I'm still partly in disbelief because for anybody who actually lives in New York City, who walks New York City streets, who has a family in New York City, these things make total sense. I think the implication here is how disconnected Zohran is from everyday normal people life. And this is why it's so important to get out, to vote, to let your voice be heard. That's why we're using this channel right now. And so, Rabbi, what do you say though? Like, I know we talked about this a little bit off air. I mean, what are more of the implications around this particular issue?
Well, I mean, I think, look, public safety, I mean, when he talks about not prosecuting basic crimes, I don't know when the last time you went into a drugstore in Manhattan or in New York City was, but you can't get anything out from the shelves because everything has to be locked up because of shoplifting. And if Mamdani comes in and says, no, we're not going to prosecute shoplifting, it's too small of a crime, then what's going to happen is you're going to encourage everybody to shoplift. I mean, to give you another example of one of his proposals was to house the homeless in subways. Now, the homeless problem is a heartbreaking problem. And I think as people of faith, we want to do everything we can to take care of the homeless. If we're honest about it, a lot of the homeless problem is a mental illness problem.
Right.
And to just say, you know what, we're going to just put them in the subway. What he's going to do is trade away the quality of life of New Yorkers because he has some wild, wide-eyed policy. And maybe this sort of bleeds into the next thing, which we really need to talk about, which is how this person has no real life experience and is proposing all sorts of policies.
Yeah, that's right. And Rabbi, I want to jump in on two things you just raised. One was the subway system and then his policy proposals. So Zohran Mamdani right now seems to be campaigning heavily on the notion that he wants to make the buses free in New York City. And if you think about the subway system right now, which isn't free, but it's low cost. Right now, there's a joke that's going around where the subway system has been called a mental institution on wheels. And New Yorkers laugh about this because there's so much truth to it. Zohran Mamdani kind of wants to, as you said, Rabbi, turn the subways into shelters for the homeless. But, anyone who's ridden the subways knows that there's a de facto of that going on. There are a lot of homeless people who seem to be staying on the subways overnight. And there's a lot of crime and there's violence. And I see daily news reports of the violence on the subways. If Mamdani were to succeed in making the buses free in New York, what happens is that all of what's taking place underground then goes above ground on the street level. And as dangerous as New York streets can be for those of us who live here, and again, just want to live our daily lives, go to work, take our children to school and activities, all of that becomes even more dangerous because now everyone that you had in the underground subway system are now on the street level because the buses are free. And it's just incredible that a policy like that, which he packages to, I think, a very young, naive, and gentrifying segment of the population that's moved into New York, is so attracted to it without having any understanding of what the implications are of what he's promising.
This is sort of, if you want to get to the core of what's happening here, is Zohran's base are basically young, white, well-educated, and entitled people. And there's no real world experience. None of these policies will actually have a direct effect on them because they're going to talk about making the subway, the buses free and controlling the rents. It doesn't really affect them whether those policies go sideways, whether the buses become unusable and the streets become filled with more crime and more homeless people. It doesn't matter whether or not apartments will disappear because there will be stronger rent control. To them, they're entitled. They have their space. They're doing well. And there's a line that people use. They call this luxury beliefs. Right. These are beliefs that you could have these wild, idealistic beliefs because you don't even need to care whether or not it will affect you. And so you have this young, privileged, mostly white base making policies that will affect minority communities all over New York City.
Yes.
This is clearly a battle for Generation Z because, quite frankly, I'm dumbfounded that his social media tactics are working on them. I think what he's playing on is their false sense of compassion, where essentially like a generation, whether it's the millennials or the Gen Z, they want to be viewed as generous. They want to be viewed as compassionate without actually doing the work. And it's kind of like if you remember back to the shoes Toms, where it's like you buy a pair of Toms and then they donate a pair. And then all the millennials are like, look, I'm helping people. It's like, no, you're just buying shoes. I think in a lot of ways, it's like what Zohran is doing through social media is like, look, I'm helping people ride the bus for free. I'm helping people have a place to stay. And it's like, well, you're really not. And it's playing on a false sense of compassion and a false sense of generosity. And it's quote unquote working on Gen Z. When I looked at the statistics, it's like that really, because of like how far left Gen Z is politically, I mean, he's just winning. But I don't think they understand this is just new school propaganda. And, through social media, that's partly why I've tried to build this channel and all of my channels to push back and to fight back against what I think are demonic narratives, because there's something much more sinister behind all of this. And it's presenting itself as compassion, generosity, but it's really a false sense because there's a very high price to pay for this the things that he's promising that, quite frankly, most of them he's not even going to be able to do. And so,
Pastor Mike, may I just say,
please,
just to amplify a point you're making right now. So I think the fact, if you ask yourselves, how did we get here? How did we have a man who just became a U.S. citizen not that many years ago,
right,
whose family says he's not American, who seems to reject every American value and the American dream, who wants to just upturn the financial capital of the United States. So partially, and speaking about this base of his supporters, these young people, mostly white, highly educated, privileged, upper economic class, who move into New York after college into cushy jobs. How we got here, I think, is because these kids are being indoctrinated in our universities. And they are actually resonating with Mamdani's Marxist, socialist, communist messaging. This is what they were taught in college and graduate school. And now they have a candidate who presents himself as the embodiment of the leftist, radical Islamist alliance in one person. And so they're like running out to support this man because this is everything they were indoctrinated. The other issue we should look at is TikTok. We had reports come out last week that it seems that TikTok's algorithm is pushing out support from Mamdani. And again, this younger generation, this is where they're getting all their information from. We're also finding out that the betting markets, the Kalshi betting markets that was showing him winning at 95%, which was so unrealistic, that it seems like the betting markets and the polling is being manipulated. But the betting markets in particular, they're finding money is coming out of China and the Middle East to make it seem to New Yorkers that Mamdani was a slam hit. He was going to win, and it was to demotivate people from voting. The good news that I really want everyone who's a New Yorker who's listening now to know that this race is definitely heating up. And what everyone needs to do is go out and vote for Andrew Cuomo. This is a person that I have endorsed as a Republican because I know that Andrew Cuomo is the one man who can save New York City. He's the only candidate who can fight Mamdani and win Mamdani. So I do want any listeners, any viewers who are with us today who can still vote, we're still in early voting, please get out there and vote for Cuomo.
Yeah, I mean, I want to jump in for a half a second and just say what Ellie said, and to put it into a phrase, America's enemies will rejoice if Mamdani wins.
Please talk about that more. We're really flowing today, and I really appreciate both of your voices. And hopefully the viewers can see the diversity within the voices today, that we have a united front, very different religion, different backgrounds, but the same, we see the truth. As a matter of fact, when you talked about social media, and I just have to say this, and then Rabbi, I want to kick back to you. I remember telling people that I could prove with data that Meta was restricting messages that I was trying to get out to the world, and then it was years later that Zuckerberg literally came out and said yes, it would, like, we were suppressing messaging. We know that AI has the ability to audit the words we're saying even in real time on a broadcast like this, and then determine how many people this feed gets distributed to. We know the game. You guys are not an audience, you're an army. You've been helping me build this channel, and many of you understand the implications of us talking about things that the dominant algorithm is very much vehemently opposed to, because it's impossible to detach a value system from a company, and they all have value systems. And so I'm so grateful for Ellie bringing up TikTok, and what the perception was, hey, why even go vote? Because it's a done deal, even though we know that that's not the truth. And that's why we all have to collectively join together and continue to fight this fight, because it's not over yet. As a matter of fact, there's still time. And my hope and my prayer as a result of this broadcast and the social posting that we're doing is that we awaken the sleeping giant, those who are passive, those who are being lethargic. Maybe some of you watching this have resigned to, well, I guess we're just going to have to accept it as if it's fate. No, that's been engineered. That perception's been created, and we have to break through that. And there is still time, which is why we all just disrupted our schedules to jump on today. But Rabbi, let's talk a little bit more about what you just said, because you just dropped a really huge, you had a mic drop moment a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think America's enemies are looking at this. They see this as a way to weaken America. I mean, right. Socialism, and I think, you and I can talk about socialism also from a religious perspective, and I know Ellie can talk about socialism from a perspective of someone who ran away from a totalitarian country, because socialism almost always becomes a dictatorship. Socialism, if you step back for a moment, socialism sounds great. You want everyone to have everything for free. And in some ways, what it is it's an atheistic version of utopia, meaning you've figured out how to have the perfect world, but you want to do it without putting in the work. You want to do it without bringing God into the picture. And so what you do is you just say, well, look, we'll tax the rich, we'll give everything away for free. You won't grapple with human nature. And as religious leaders, we know that part of how you forge a religious personality is by grappling with our nature and sometimes sort of giving in a little bit, but recognizing that, you know what, human beings are fundamentally selfish, and we need to understand that. And that's what capitalism is based on. And that what we try to do is refine that selfishness so that it brings out the generosity in our hearts. And so socialism is really, I think, in many ways, the fundamental mistake here, that he's coming in and he's saying, we're going to bring the socialist vision to New York. Socialism has failed for 150 years. Every single place it was brought, it destroyed the country it went to. And yet here we are. We have bright, college-educated students who say, let's bring socialism to New York.
It's so outrageous. And I just want to share that the notion that Mamdani is just going to raise taxes in New York to pay for all of these wild promises he's making to this very gullible audience of his base, his voters. Well, first of all, as a mayor, he doesn't have even the ability to raise taxes. But if, let's say, he were to convince the folks up in Albany, the governor and the assembly and so on to raise taxes, the first thing that's going to happen, and there's the titans of industry and Wall Street have already said this. The first thing that's going to happen is that all those billionaires and multimillionaires that he wants to tax, including his own supporters, they're just going to change their state incorporation. They're just going to leave New York in droves. Right. We're going to see, this is already a trend in the United States where people are leaving blue states and going to red states. New Yorkers are going to just get up. Those billionaires and millionaires, I'm friends with many of them. They're going to get on their private jets and they're out of here. They're going to be in Florida and Texas and everywhere else, in Puerto Rico, everywhere where the tax infrastructure works for them. And then it is, again, it's the working class, the minority communities that are going to pay the heaviest price for all of the lunacy that Mamdani is proposing.
Yeah, so well said. And we've already got a small number of conservatives in New York City. I think it's like 10% or less, and many of them are leaving, which then what happens is it becomes even more polarizing here. For those that stay, there a smaller number of people, and then the pendulum begins to swing in the other direction. And I think, some of us are like, how did we even get here? But if I could just for a moment explain that there has been a long journey, a process. Zohran has been sort of flying under the radar, just incrementally like winning to get to the point where he is now. And for those of you watching who are not in New York City that don't think that this is not an attempt to go deeper into DC, deeper in, and what happens is right now for some of us older folks, this is like shocking. But then what happens is it becomes normalized in a generation, and then that journey continues, and we end up in an America that is vastly different than the one that we want to live in. And that's why I said the implications for this, in my opinion, are huge, because what happens in New York City eventually does happen in the rest of the U.S. I don't know if you guys want to touch on something that, I think it kind of is in the same vein, but even the idea of legalizing prostitution and what that looks like. Because again, to me, New York City, this becomes a Trojan horse for some legislation that then could try to be enacted in many of the cities of the U.S. I don't know if you want to talk about that briefly.
Well, I mean, all it does is it encourages crimes against women. It is a horrific thing. Legalizing prostitution doesn't make it better. it actually makes it more popular. And the women who are victimized by prostitution now, there will be more of them in the future because it will be legal and it'll be easier to pull vulnerable women into prostitution. What it says about a city, what it says about its values, right? And we're religious people. We're here. We're going to talk about values. What does it mean for your kids to walk down the street and see prostitutes there? What it says about the city, it says about its values and how this can undermine everything. And again, this all goes with the same mindset. We'd be better off without laws. Everything like it. Why make anything illegal? Let everybody, we're going to just allow people to do what they want. And that's not utopia. That's hell. And it can end up destroying us.
That is so well said, Rabbi. And I have to say, as a woman, as a mom, it's just so disgusting to me, the notion of legalizing prostitution. We already have a big human trafficking problem in our country and in the entire world. All it does is increase human trafficking. It turns women into a commodity that can be bought and sold. It's just so horrible. I mean, it's just horrible. It's disgusting. It's anti-God. It's another one of these policies he's raising where you ask yourself, how did we even get here that this man is proposing such a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't expect this broadcast to be emotional, but as a father to two daughters who I'm raising in this city, it's just, I'm so thankful for true freedom fighters like yourselves and people who still have a conscience, people who still believe in God, who believe in right and wrong. And a lot of this is coming down to how persuasive is somebody's rhetoric. And again, like you brilliantly noted, Rabbi, when a society begins to start in the direction of atheism, then you determine your own truth. And then this rhetoric works. And just like you said, Ellie, I mean, for decades in our colleges and universities, even right here in New York City, this doctrine has been programmed into people's minds. And so how you get a Zohran, how he can even get this far is a result of not just years, but even decades leading into this moment. And my greatest encouragement is that many of you will see what's happening and wake up. And even if it is in the 11th hour, you'll realize, and I see the comments right now, people are saying, this is disgusting. I didn't know this. How could I have not seen this? Which is exactly why we're doing this broadcast. As we get ready to come to a close, I want to just raise the stakes as high as I can. And I feel, I just feel that it's necessary to do this. And y'all, thank you for helping us today to hit the thumbs up, to share this broadcast, to get the word out. But let's talk about how this could possibly globalize the genocide. And I know that's a huge phrase. Rabbi, I don't know if you want to kick us off, but what are the implications?
I think that, last but certainly most important in many ways, is his friendship with terrorists and his continual anti-Zionist rhetoric, which I want to unpack for a moment. But let's just talk about friendship with terrorists. Yeah. Campaigning just 2 weeks ago with Imam Wahaj, who was an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. That was like a trial run. 6 people were murdered in that bombing. They missed it by just a little bit. They almost knocked down the building. My sister actually worked in the building and remembers that day, and it was a shocking day because the entire building trembled. And for him to go campaigning with someone who is a terrorist, who is a supporter of terrorists, speaks to the type of friendships he has. Don't forget, a mayor comes in, he brings in a team. How many people in that team have a soft spot for terrorism and terrorists? Now, Mamdani will say he's not an anti-Semite, but he's just an anti-Zionist. But recently revealed was a speech that he gave 2 years ago when he was an elected official, when he was a member of the New York State Assembly, where he said the boot of the NYPD on the necks of minorities, the necks of Black people, were laced up by the Israeli army. Now, again, talking about respect for NYPD, depicting them as these monstrous, racist animals, when in fact the NYPD are the people who are putting their lives on the line to protect us and protect him. That itself is terrible. But let's go to what he's saying about Israel. Now, everyone can go and sit and talk about how anti-Zionism is not the same thing as anti-Semitism, and he loves to do that game. But here's the thing. When anti-Zionism rhymes with anti-Semitism, then it doesn't even matter whether you believe you're an anti-Semite or not. It's going to alert every anti-Semite. It's going to be a dog whistle to them.
I mean, you articulated so beautifully. The notion that that you can have this hatred towards the Jewish state of Israel and somehow, not be an anti-Semite. I think that these last 2 years since the October 7 attack on Israel and the 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents and attacks that Jews experience in the United States in the wake of October 7, it kind of blew that entire lie out. I think we all know at this point, we've seen it. We've seen these pro-Hamas mobs that took over our cities. We saw the Jews that were violently assaulted and attacked in the wake of October 7th in the United States. It's just a false narrative. It's a complete lie. And basically, it's become this leftist progressive talking point to try to say that, I can harbor this hatred towards Israel, the Jewish state, but, I have no problem with the Jews. Well, Israel is a Jewish state. Most of its citizens are Jewish. And of course, like the rabbi pointed out, most people conflate Jews and Israel. So when you create all kinds of lies, libels and accusations against Israel, there has been an increase in anti-Semitism as a result of that. And that's just statistically been proven true at this point. What I also wanted to raise, though, in this conversation is that, as the rabbi brilliantly pointed out, we've seen Mamdani's ties, his actual campaigning with the World Trade Center co-conspirator, unindicted co-conspirator. We've seen his pictures with his very good friend Hassan Piker, who is on the record saying, quote, America deserved 9/11. And so all of that led me personally, when early voting began, to again think to myself, how are we here? How could New York City, the place where I will never forget 9/11, I'll never forget the morning of September 11th, where I was, what happened when I started to understand the news, what was going on. I'll never forget the 3,000 New Yorkers that were killed that day. I'll never forget the scenes of the people who were jumping out of the towers because it was a burning inferno inside, and they decided it was better for them to die jumping out of those windows rather than to burn alive. I'll never forget any of that. I'll never forget any of it. The firefighters who were rushing into the scene, the sound of sirens all day. I was hearing sirens of our brave men and women rushing into the scene to try to help. I'll never forget any of it. And as I was thinking to myself, what happened? Did New York actually forget what happened in 9/11, that we would make our mayor somebody who's connected to the people who are responsible for that day? And so I actually, I tweeted about this, and my tweet went viral, where I just put out the photos of the attack that morning of the building, with the airplane attacking the building and the person who was falling out of the window. And that tweet got 20 million views because I believe that there are many of us who are the silent majority, and that it has resonated with people, that in fact, most of us have not forgotten 9/11. Those of us who are old enough and who lived in New York and everywhere. And so again, I think that the key here is that we do remember our history. We do remember that there is such a thing as right and wrong, that there is such a thing as good and evil. And these things actually do play into politics as well. And that the greatest right that we have as American citizens is the right to vote. And so again, I just want to encourage everyone who's listening, who's watching us today, if you live in New York City, please exercise your right to vote and get out there and vote your conscience.
And bring your friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
So well said. It became really apparent while you were talking that this stream is for the silent majority. And I'm asking you all to rise up, use your voice. Let's become the loudest voice, because the truth is the silent majority is a majority. And I think what happens too often with social media, what happens too often with just the even legacy level media is it makes an appearance as if it's the majority when it's truly not. And so I'm going to continue to do the work on my side as well. I want to just give you both, final words as we get ready to log off here. Everybody stick around, because I want to just talk to you for a few moments afterwards, but we're doing our part. I think it's time for you to do yours. But what are your final words?
My final words are, don't let New York City turn into San Francisco. Don't let New York City turn into Portland. Vote against Mamdani, and most importantly, vote for the only person who can defeat him. Vote for Andrew Cuomo. That's the only way we're going to beat him. Go out and vote. Bring your friends. Bring your friends' friends. If we all get out there, you can vote today, you can vote tomorrow, you can vote Sunday, and of course you can vote on Election Day on Tuesday, although the lines will be longer on Election Day. Get out and vote and make sure we save our city.
Yeah, I will add to that again, I served under President Trump. I am a Republican. I'm an incredibly proud Republican. Unfortunately, in this race, Curtis Sliwa has no chance of winning. And so unfortunately, what we're dealing with is that a vote for Sliwa is actually a vote for Mamdani. The only way we can beat Mamdani is if everybody who's against him unites under Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo has the highest numbers in terms of an opponent to Mamdani. He's the only one who can beat Mamdani. So as a Republican, I am also asking all Republicans, all independents, and everyone of good moral conscience, please vote for Andrew Cuomo and save our city.
Wow. So well said, both of you. I want to sincerely thank you. I don't know why, but there were just several parts while both of you guys were talking that were very emotional for me. And this is a fight for New York City. This is a fight for our future. And this fight's not over yet. And I even personally, if I could just share from my heart, there was a moment of resignation that I had. For as much of a fighter as I've been, and for as vocal as I've been, I started to think, how do we beat Zohran in this machine? But I believe that light always beats darkness. And I believe that there is still time. And we've seen 11th hour victories over and over again. They never count on you all switching from passive to active. They're counting on you being lethargic. They're counting on you just staying passive. But that's not how we built this channel. And that's not what we're going to do. So guys, continue to use your voice. Thank you so much, Ellie. Thank you, Rabbi. Y'all are amazing. We're going to have to do more of this. And you've given us so much of your time, and I know how busy both of you are. So everybody in the chat, sincerely thank them. We're going to actually link to their social profiles in the description. I know many of you have been like, how can I follow them? How do I stay connected? All that's going to be in the description as well. So go over there, make sure you follow them. And guys, let's get out there. So thank both of you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Mike.
Hey guys, we're going to stick around for a few more moments right now. Again, go to your description, the description here of this video, follow them and stay connected. Again, you see the unity within diversity. You see what's happening in New York City. Zohran Mamdani cannot win. I'm just simply saying that he cannot win. Now, some of you might be saying, well, what happens if he does? And I said this, I'm going to say it again as somebody who has read Genesis through Revelation. In the times where people win that should not have won, I have seen God use Pharaoh to draw out Moses. I've even when those things happen, I've seen that God will divinely use it to draw his people out and to unify them like never before. And so ultimately, I'm at peace. Even though I'm disturbed, even though I'm sick to my stomach, even though I look at these issues, I cannot believe that we have a democratic socialist that has gotten this far. It's simply undeniable that Zohran is a Trojan horse for so many demonic agendas. But I just know that God has called me and my family to this city. And no matter what the outcome is, I'm playing my part. I'm a loud voice. For those of you who are New Testament, for the New Covenant believers in the chat right now, I know that I personally am a voice crying in the wilderness. I've been a John the Baptist voice. Guys, I have planted congregations from New Jersey to Manhattan to Brooklyn to Long Island because I believe in this city. I believe in this region, and I am not going to back down from the fight. And I'll end on this. We are on the right side of history. And you all who have been following me, you see that I get canceled and then I get confirmed. I get canceled, then I get confirmed every single time. And vindication, vindication belongs to the Lord. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob always receives vindication, and I'm on his side. And in the end, we always win. I'm telling you, it might take days, months, years, or decades, but in the end, we are on the right side of history. That's what this broadcast is about. So, I want to answer this question that I get in the chat right now. This is great, but why wait until the week before the election to speak? I want to be very blunt with you. I am somebody who is teaching biblical values and teaching the truth on a daily basis. And so whether I talk about politics directly, I'm always talking about them indirectly because I'm a man of the book. And so what happens is when you teach people spiritual discernment, you don't have to tell them what to do. They'll know what to do. When you teach people biblical values, you don't have to tell people what to do. Listen, I'm not raising up robots and I'm not raising up rebels. I'm raising up disciples. And here's my thing is I'm always talking about elections, even if I'm not explicitly talking about elections, because I'm training people in biblical truth. That's why even the rabbi said, hey, listen, the only way that you get Democrat socialist, the only way that you get to this point is atheism. I mean, this would never even happen if we still had a Judeo-Christian worldview, which historically has been the base level mentality of most Americans. Judeo-Christian meaning tracing the mindset into Judaism and Christianity. I mean, if you go back historically in the US, that was the dominant worldview. And then there was a departure from that. And the postmodern and then post-postmodern worldview, not trying to get too deep on you, but as we begin to slip into atheistic worldviews, that's when this began to happen. And so for me, it's not, Mike, why did you wait a week before the election to speak? It's, if you're really paying attention to what I'm doing, I am I'm destroying these false mindsets, and I'm of atheism or maybe agnostic or, these other false worldviews, and then installing the true worldview, which is a Judeo-Christian worldview. It's the very one that even enabled America to function. And this is what people are learning in this hour is America does not actually function with any other worldview. And that's why we need men of faith to begin to rise up and to begin to speak the word of truth boldly. So guys, go follow Ellie on X. All of that will be linked in the description. She's got Facebook and Instagram as well. My good friend, Rabbi Chaim, absolutely love him. And so thankful for his voice. I mean, he has been so courageous and so bold. Guys, you just saw me fill a stadium in Chicago, one of the darkest cities of the U.S. And I believe that what happened in Chicago, we shined a light in the midst of darkness. We're getting ready to do it in New York. Stay tuned. We are not done. The Battle of New York. Listen, sometimes the enemy wins a battle, but he will lose the war. And we have to believe that for our family, for our city. So guys, get out there, exercise your right to vote and spread this message. I'm going to regroup here with the team. I'm going to go get another cup of coffee because it seems apparent that this fight is just ramping up and the enemy's very, very afraid of what could happen if we all get loud. Love you guys so much.